Hello, sixth grade, and welcome to lesson 3. In this lesson, we are continuing to practice and study value, which is one of the 7 elements of art. We introduced value in our previous project, lesson 2, where we created value using paint, and we learned how to mix tints and shades to create a gradual transition from light to dark using paint. We're going to continue to practice value. Many artists would say that value is one of the most important 7 elements of art. Value helps us make our drawings and our paintings look more realistic and gives it a sense of depth and 3-dimensionality. So if you're wanting your drawings and paintings to look as though they were lifelike, like as though you could pick them up, even though you're drawing or painting them on a two-dimensional surface, you're giving the illusion that they are 3D by applying value. So we're going to continue to practice that. In lesson 3, we are going to be practicing creating value using colored pencil. We are looking at the artist Pablo Picasso and studying Cubism. So please check out the Google slide for all the terminology on value and our featured artist Pablo Picasso and the Cubist movement. Step 1 of this lesson is we are going to complete our value worksheet. So you should have printed this off for lesson 2 when we practiced creating value with paint at the top. So step 1 is we're going to finish creating value first with shading and then practicing with line, cross-hatching, and scribble. And so make sure that you kept this worksheet from lesson 2, otherwise you'll need to print one off to complete the remaining value scales. For this lesson, you will need a 12 by 12 piece of paper. You can see on my previous example, I did it on a large 12 by 18. I felt like this took almost too much time. It was too big. So we're gonna just cut that down to a 12 by 12. For the remote learners at home, if you don't have 12 by 12, you can just use the 8 by 10 white piece of drawing paper. You will also need pencil and eraser, colored pencils, a ruler, and then you will need some circle tracers and straight edges. If you don't have any circle tracers, you can just use anything round that you might have at home, like Tupperware lids or masking tape to trace circles. All right, I hope you enjoy continuing to learn about value and practicing creating value, this time with pencil and colored pencil in this lesson as we learn about Pablo Picasso, the Cubism movement, and how value continues to make our artworks look more 3-dimensional. Follow along and enjoy. Oh, and don't forget to check out the Google Classroom Lesson 3, the Google slide, which will have step-by-step examples as well as your grading criteria for this project. You should have already completed the painting portion of your value worksheet. Now we are moving on to learning how to create value using a pencil. When creating value using a pencil, we always start from dark to light. It's the opposite when using paint. When we created our tints and shades, we went from light to dark. Now you are starting with box 6 and using a pencil, pressing firmly, creating your darkest value. You want to make sure that your pencil strokes are going in one smooth direction. It's totally up to you if you would like to have your pencil strokes going horizontal, diagonal, or vertical. But regardless, in each box, for neatness purposes, you want all of your pencil strokes going in the same smooth direction. So I've chosen to go vertical. So I'm filling my whole box shading vertically, except for there. Now you can see at the edges, for neatness purposes, I'm changing my pencil stroke. You want to also make sure that the value is consistent within each box. You shouldn't have multiple shades of dark and light within one box. So my box number 6 is one consistent value, creating my darkest value. Once you're happy with box number 6, your darkest value, you're moving on to box number 5, which should be just a little bit lighter. We're trying to create that gradual transition from dark to light. Remember, when using pencil, you can always make your value darker. But if you go in too dark from the get-go, it's really difficult to lighten up your value. You can always add more layers of pencil and make it darker, but it's difficult to erase and get a consistent value if you go in too dark. So I'm going in a little light, and then I'm going to put in a second layer of pencil. I'm going to blend with my finger until my box number 5 almost mimics your painted value scale at the top. That's sort of your reference while you're creating your value scale with pencil, is you're looking at the painted value scale you have at the top as your guide. You're going to continue this process as you work down the value scale, filling in each box, pencil strokes going in that same direction for neatness, always starting out a little bit lighter than necessary, blending with your fingers so that you have a nice gradual transition from dark to light. Once you've completed your shaded value scale, now you're moving on to the next value scale, creating value using line. You're going to need a ruler. With the ruler, you are starting again with box number 6, your darkest value, and you are drawing straight lines, as many lines as possible to get that darkest value. You can choose which direction you want your lines to go. In my example, I've chosen to go diagonal, but if you would like your lines to go horizontal or vertical, it's your choice, but you need to be consistent within each box. So if you choose diagonal, all of the boxes in your value scale for line need to stay diagonal. So I am gradually moving my ruler through the box, and I'm drawing straight diagonal lines, keeping them as close together as possible and pressing firmly with my pencil to get or to create my darkest value for number 6. Again, with this process, less is more. You can always go back and add more lines to darken the value box, but it's really difficult to take lines away. So start out with a little bit less than what you think you need, and then as you can see here, I've gone back through and added more lines to try to again mimic your previous value scale from above, trying to create your darkest value. As you work down the value scale, you're just incorporating less and less lines to create that gradual transition from dark to light. So you're spacing out your lines, leaving more white space in between each one to create that value scale. Once you've completed your value scale using line, you're moving on to the next value scale, creating value using cross-hatching. Again, we always start from dark to light when using pencil, so you're starting in box number 6. Cross-hatching is the process of making small pencil strokes, small diagonal pencil strokes that go perpendicular to each other. So they cross each other like little X's. Now we don't want perfect rows of X's. We want your X's to overlap, and you'll see in box number 6, the more they overlap, the darker the value. So I'm drawing little hash lines going in one direction, and then I'm overlapping with little hash lines going in the opposite direction seen here. And then I'm working my way up, filling the box. Again, the more you overlap, the darker the value. So as you work down your value scale, you're going to space out those lines and overlap them less. Remember, you can always go back and add more. As you just saw there, I went back to my number 6 because I felt like there wasn't much difference between box number 6 and box number 5, and I added more lines to create that gradual transition from dark to light. The last value scale that you're going to complete is scribble. Now this isn't an out of control scribble, this is a controlled scribble. I'm keeping my scribbly lines within the box. It's more of a swirly, circly motion. And again, the more that you overlap your swirly, circly motion lines, the darker the value is. So I'm starting in box number 6, and then as you see, as I work down my value scale, I'm overlapping those swirls less and less to create that gradual transition from dark to light. Once you complete your value scale worksheet, please check out video number 2 for lesson 3 as we begin your actual art project, Cubism Value.